All right, how we doing, everybody? I think I'm live. Yes, I am live. So cool. Um, yeah, you can see some of my collectibles behind me. Um, and if you're in the chat, say hi. So yeah, thank you guys so much for getting us to the next level. There, we went live pretty much 1, 2 o'clock in the morning last night, EST. So pretty much almost midnight on Pacific time, and we're at 40% already. So I'm hoping to get even further before the end of the 21st 24 hours. All right, thank you guys so much again for getting us there. And for issue 1, I do have a few of the different covers still available. So this is what I call the montage cover, and then I have the bloodbath one, and then I have the throne one, and the other one's more of a naughty cover. So I'll just do this with it. So we have I have a few of those left, and that's pretty much it. So I don't have uh, the other versions of the throne cover are no longer available. So so yeah, it's going to probably be the same thing here, where I have some of the covers that are going to go away after a period of time. So so yeah, if you have any questions about writing or that kind of thing, because I don't know if everybody knows this, but I am a award-winning screenwriter and a novelist, and I also, of course, write comics. But I also work in the film industry. I am a line producer, which I describe as I do everything that nobody else wants to do. So I deal with the unions, and I deal with the budgets, and I work with crewing up, and I help the director with casting, and of course contracts with the actors and things to that effect. Uh, Hi, I don't know what you would go by Grand Darth Starweaver. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Of course, you're probably a Star Wars fan then. So you probably came in through my Destiny Aurora stuff. So yeah, if you're a Destiny Aurora fan, then as you know, we have the graphic novel is that's been completed, and of course, I have the 4 novel series that's out. So yeah, and the audiobook just came out, getting some good reviews on that. We got husband wife team doing all the voices, so it's not just one actor doing all the voices, so it sounds a little bit more like a radio show. I'm pretty proud of that because I listened to it myself over again. In fact, I'm almost finished rereading or re-listening to it, and yeah, I think it came out pretty well. So yeah, you probably have this is my other stuff over here. So there's I don't know if you have this one, Destiny Aurora. Um, has a whole 150 pages, so it's an entire adaptation of the first novel. And then, of course, my female spy, Cats, and then that's Lords. So yeah, I'm excited to get the story going with this one because I am finishing up the Lord of Vegas storyline. And if you read the last issue, it had to do with this other vampire coming into Hollywood, basically claiming that he had both Vegas and Los Angeles under his control. And the other 2 vampires are Dante and Vincent are not having it. They are not having it. And the twins that own the club, they owe him. I guess that's their sire, so they owe him everything. So I guess they agree to be tortured by him every time he comes to town. So so things get messy in this next one, but this one's gonna finish up that whole storyline. And so I'm excited for you everybody to see it because there's gonna be a lot of action. I have a Were Panther in it and stuff to that effect. So you say I'm a self-published writer. I would like at some point to know how to write a good story. Yeah. So also On the novel side, this is my latest YA. It's kind of really for all ages fantasy novel, and I do something a little bit different. So this is a full novel, but I do something a little differently with it because the kingdom is broken up into different, I guess, little kingdoms. So the continent, I should say, is broken up into kingdoms, and each one of the kingdoms has a different god set. So there's Greek, and there's uh, Asian, and there's European, and also Egyptian and things like that. So it's got a different look and feel than a normal fantasy novel. So as far as writing, I don't know what you've written in the past, but how because I also have I don't know if you're a comic fan, if you are subscribed to Mike Spider Slayer's thing. So he and I are working on a project right now as well that we're gonna artwork is being done basically right now. So I'm waiting for the layouts, but it's how I approach writing is I'm like, okay, so what is my genre? That's the first thing that I talk to myself about basically that I decide on or debate with myself, I should say. So what's my genre and what's my audience? That's your biggest thing. Like, what is your audience? Are you going for the sci-fi reader? Are you going for the horror reader? Are you going for the gore and stuff to that effect? Are you going for like the Punisher, or are you going for like squeaky clean Superman type of stuff? So that's my first thing is I decide what genre it is, because from there I can figure out who my potential readers are. Because when you're marketing, that's the big thing is you have to basically pick out am I going after the thriller readers? Am I going after the action readers, stuff like that. So that's very important because marketing, especially if you're self-published, and even if you are not, even if you're going with a publisher, it's very important because a lot of times publishers nowadays say, because I've sent my stuff into for publishers as well, and they really do nothing for you any time now, unless you're like an A-list actor. Even the book that what's her face came out with, Jada Pinkett, she had to do her own marketing too. That's why she did all the crappy things that she did. But one of the things that the publishers ask you nowadays is, how are you going to market your book? How are you going to market your book? Not how are we going to market your book? So it's very, very important to figure that out as far as the clean thing. So once I have that figured out, then I decide what the story is. And normally I'll come up with the ending first. So where am I going with this? I want to tell a story about, a woman that has to, kill a bunch of aliens and save Newt or whatever, talking about aliens, things to that effect. So I kind of figure out where I want to go, and then I start going backwards, and I start building the characters out. And it's also very important to have your characters being very different from each other. And the reason being is you have to create voice. Okay, and that's an industry term that your character, whenever your character is, I think, what was Joss Whedon, that was his big thing, is that each one of his characters, if you took away the name of the person speaking, you could still figure out who it was, whose line that was. So that's what voice is that each person has, speaks a little differently and on different topics, or some people don't have, apostrophes or whatever else. They use contractions like Data. Data would never use a contraction. So if somebody wrote a contraction for him, you knew that the thing was messed up. So I have like a sheet that I fill out that has a whole bunch of questions on it. It's like a survey sheet, but I write it as if I am the character. So I answer the questions in the mind of the character. and it'll tell me, it ask me, what my religious beliefs are. Do I have any siblings? What's, my favorite childhood memory? And when you're filling this out, you're developing that character. It's information that no one will ever see. You might do a flashback or something like that that includes some of that stuff, but for the most part, most people will never see the stuff that you're writing in those surveys. But that's how I create voice, because once I know the background of the character, then how that character thinks and reacts to things is independent from the other characters, and that's how you get these characters that live on. Like even in Star Wars with Luke and Leia and Han, each one of them speaks completely differently than one another, and that's what will set you apart as a writer, also, so everybody is not sounding exactly the same. So yeah, so that's what I do. That's my process, and then from there, if I'm writing, whether it's a script or a comic book or a movie, then I lay out the story beats. Like the first act, I have an introduction or I have a cold open, meaning I have some kind of an action in there that then I refer to later. So is it whether it's waking up for a dream, or I start out with the middle of the book and then or story, and then I circle around by saying 3 weeks earlier or whatever. So, or 3 weeks later for that matter, if some kind of a event affects the storyline. So yeah, so that's how I do all that, and then I'll take those beats and then I'll write a script. So here's how I do things a little differently than everybody else. I think it's different because I was writing my a biography. So I ended up meeting this woman who was a Holocaust survivor, but she wasn't like in a concentration camp. She was part of the Jewish resistance in Germany, and she fled Germany after she almost got caught as a teenager to England, and then was there as a refugee when England declared war and all this stuff. So she actually, you know, met Hitler and things to that effect before Hitler rose to power, and it's pretty interesting. But anyway, she was telling me this whole story, and I realized that she was never going to tell it linearly. So I had never been to England. I still to this day, I've never been to Germany. So I didn't have the perception of what she was talking about and the life experience, of course. So I said, please, give me as much detail as you can in order, but it just never happened. She would tell me an anecdotal story over here and an anecdotal story over there, and I had to piece this whole thing together. So, oh, you're welcome. So I decided that I was just going to write the thing because she was just making a mess. So I was just going to write the thing and then I'll rewrite it, when she gives me notes. So that took me over a year and a half to write, and before she was happy with it. And she was 80 something years old at the time. She's not living anymore. In fact, I wonder. Yeah. Let me see. I'll get So this is the book here that took me. That took me a year and a half to write, and so, but it came out pretty well. That's what she looked like when she was younger and stuff like that. But yeah, so I decided after it taking me that long to do all that rewrites, because when you're rewriting prose, it takes forever. Because maybe you're writing 3 pages a day, 4 pages a day on a high end. So to rewrite whole chapters because something's wrong, it's a pain. So I decided from that point on, everything I was writing, whether it's a movie or a TV show or a book or a comic book, everything was going to be written in a script form. So I use Movie Magic script writing, and I lay everything out there. I write everything there because I know that it's going to be easier to rewrite that. So what I do is then I take the script and like 100, said 160 pages, something like that, which is too long for a movie, but it's like right for a book. So, and then my scripts for my books are literally page to page, and so is a movie. A movie and a TV show is 1 page to 1 minute of shooting. I don't know if you knew that or not. So, a 60-minute TV show is 60 pages, or approximately anyway, because some of your action is going to take more time on screen, and your dialogue sometimes will take less time on screen. So it evens out by the time you're done. So, so I write the script, and then I do a read through I bring in actors I know and stuff like that, and we all sit around a table, and I'll stop them halfway through, and I'll tell them to give me notes. So I do all my notes then and there. So yeah, they tell me this doesn't work, or sometimes people are afraid to tell you that they don't like something, but I wipe that off the map. I like, no, I want you to beat the shit out of me. This is the reason you're here, is to beat shit out of me. So that's what I do, and then they feel comfortable. Once somebody speaks up and says something, and I don't bite their head off, then the other people feel comfortable in giving me notes. So so I take those notes, and then I do a rewrite from there. From that, I know now that I have, and of course I'll read it over myself. I have something that the dialogue works for, and I know that the story works, right? So I have a basis for whatever I want to do with it now. And from there, I will either rewrite it into a comic form, because comic scripts are completely different than movie and TV scripts. Because a movie script and a comic book script, you're basically directing. You're telling, what angle you want to the artist, like it's an over the shoulder, or it's a wide shot of a car flipping over. It's this punch scene where the guy receiving the punch is thrown back. You're describing all that stuff to them. And with a movie, you are not. If you write over the shoulder or whatever else, whoever's producing it will remove that, because that is a director's job. And if you start giving stage direction to a director, he's going to tell you to go screw off. And those guys will take it personally. So yeah, that's how the difference is. And then of course, when I'm writing a novel from that, yeah, so a comic book script is literally page 1, panel 1, page 1, panel 2, and then so you're literally writing the panels out. Where in a novel, I'll take that, and it'll sometimes the book will change a little bit. Like I'll change different scenes and stuff like that end up working better. That goes with anything. That's the other thing, is that once I have the script, I'm actually doing another rewrite, because as I'm then developing it into another medium, I'm realizing that certain things maybe weren't perfect, and it'll evolve. And so yeah, so that's my method for writing. So I suggest everybody write a script first, and this way it's way easier to rewrite a script than it is anything else. Because even if you're rewriting a comic book and you've already laid out pages, you got to relay them out. And with a comic book, you want the scene to end before the next page starts. So you want to contain your scenes within pages. So when you're turning the page, you're into a new scene, or you're a continuation from the scene prior. If you change scenes in the middle of the page, it's just awkward. So, and of course, with comic books, you have to be very equitable, because you only have a certain amount. Although I realize, and I'm reading some of the older stuff, like I bought. If you read some of the stuff that's older, like I reread this. I just bought this, and this is from my childhood. So this is 40 cents or whatever. And so I'm reading this, and there was of course thought balloons, things like that. So there's a lot more dialogue and everything like that than we'd have in present comic books. present comic books, read very quickly. And in fact, if you have too much dialogue, people will complain. I need criticism to improve my writing, and or someone that has a thin skin is no good. Yeah, that's for sure. So that's why, even if you don't, even if you live in an area that doesn't really have actors, like of course that's my world, so I can just call up actors I know. At least I did in LA. I just recently moved to Atlanta 2 months ago, so I'm starting over because nothing really being shot in LA anymore. So that's why I had to move out of there. So yeah, there's a whole bunch shooting here. It's just that everybody's on strike right now, so I'm waiting for the strikes to end. So I have to hang out until January because I think everybody walked until January. So anyway, if you don't have actors in your area that you can just call on, of course I have to do that. I have to rebuild my database here. I know some actors here, but not as many as I knew in LA. I can just make 12 phone calls and 12 people would show up, and 12 people that had some significant credits. And but if you don't live in an area that has any actors, it's fine because everybody wants to be an actor. So you can definitely get friends and people like that will read lines for you. Because if they don't act it out perfectly, it doesn't matter because you're hearing it. You're hearing the dialogue, right? Through somebody else's mouth to your ears, as opposed to you reading it just in a linear form. You reading it and having somebody else read it is two different things. And when you're hearing it, that's why you should never play any of the roles yourself, including the narrator. Don't play anything because it's your job as a writer to sit there and listen, and to listen objectively. And when and it's funny too, because people will read what they think should be there, right? So when they're reading something and they start changing your lines, you're going to realize because that your line was too clunky. And you're going to scratch out the line that you wrote and you're going to write in what those people said because it's probably better. Also, when you have run-on sentences, you'll hear people stop to take breaths. So they'll be like, and they don't take a breath. And then when they do that, you'll realize that your dialogue is wrong because no person does that. They will speak just saying the words they need to say. And if you're taking a breath in between, either you have a person that has a very serious problem with in real life, if they're taking a breath between in between sentences or whatever else, and they're still talking out, then they have problems of their own to deal with. So anyway, that's why we're having other people read it, even if they're not actors, is very important. So just get a bunch of your friends together, rent a little conference room somewhere. Or I don't like this as much is Zoom. It's just having Zoom. We did that during the pandemic, and I think I have ads that are going to play here in a second. So I guess I'll see you in a second. All right, I just don't know when the ad is going to end. All right, I don't know if you guys are back from the ad there. It doesn't tell me. It just says ads coming. That's all it tells me. So I'm going to assume you guys are back and just kind of skip the ads. So anyway, people when you get a conference room together. We did Zoom during COVID. It just doesn't work as well. It just doesn't work as well. It just doesn't. And then I just buy food. I go to Subway or I go to a Chinese food joint or whatever else. I spend like $30 on food, and then we take a break, to eat something or whatever else, and then we get discussions going, and then we come back to it. So, but yeah, anybody, if you say, hey, I'm going to supply free food, your people will show up. Your people will definitely show up. And then they'll if they have a good time, they'll do it again for your next one. Or when you have another read through the same thing that you've done, an edit on. If you've done a major edit, then you're probably better off bringing them back to do a second read through sometime in the future before you lock it. And again, after you lock it, you're still rewriting it anyway into whatever the version is outside of, if you're just doing a regular movie television script, then if you're locking it, you're locking it. And then you'll probably get a couple of people to read that. People don't usually have a problem reading scripts, so they read pretty fast. But with the other thing is that when you're doing comics, then you'll have two people reading it anyway, because you're going to have your penciler read it, and then you're going to have your letterer read it. So you could also invite them to give you notes. So when you're doing layouts when the artist is doing layouts for you, which means they're just doing basically stick figures so that you can sign off on how the page looks. You can definitely ask them if they have any notes, or sometimes they'll say, sometimes they'll just draw it. They'll draw it differently than what you wrote because they'll tell you straight out it didn't work. And then your letterer will come back and say, well, this doesn't, you don't have the proper pronunciation, commas here, and that kind of thing. And they'll probably even add that stuff. If not, then when you read it through, you're going to have to give them notes and send it back to them. Sometimes I have problems with, they're missing commas, or I didn't like how the word sounds, or I realized that I know the character's name, but the reader doesn't. And I have to implement, that character's name into the dialogue, or else there's nothing coming back. Yeah, I figured by the name of your avatar there that you were a sci-fi fan. So sci-fi is my favorite genre also. I don't know if you know my credits, but I produced Star Trek Renegades, and I also I produced the next one we did, but unfortunately with what happened with one of the other creators, CBS cracked down on all the fan films and things like that. So the next episode of that was then changed to a non-Star Trek episode. And then I did a thing for. Oh, you do? So you know it? Okay, cool. Yeah. So I produced that. Tim Russ. I'm sure you know who Tim Russ is. He's played Tuvok on Voyager. He's a very, very good friend of mine. And he directs a lot of the stuff that I do. In fact, he kept me working before I left LA, he also, since he directs, and we have such a good relationship together, he brings me on to help him with the facilitating. He doesn't like dealing with the facilitating of some of the paperwork and things like that. That's not his thing. So he'll bring me on to deal with all that stuff. And I first AD'd for him a few times. But anyway, so yeah, and then I thought you looked familiar. Well, maybe we met at a convention or something like that. I don't know if you went to Michelle's final, farewell convention that we had at LA Comic Con or whatever it was. I was there as well because we were supporting Michelle at that time and bringing her to conventions and basically acting as her agent because her previous agent stole a crap ton of money from her. So she really didn't have the money to retire. So, in fact, this was the original. That's why it's in pieces. The arm will probably fall off. But this was the original piece for Amanara, obviously based on Michelle. And then we sent this to CBS, and CBS said, no red. No red. So this isn't even glued together. This was just the one I got back from China before we did the final one. The final one's right there. And if you're a fan of Renegades, then you'll recognize this as one of the phasers. So then this was our own design. And I ended up using this in Aminara as well. So you'll see that a couple of times. But yeah, so that's my whole thing with sci-fi. But I'm a fan of sci-fi, and we ended up showing Aminara at that Comic-Con. It's a really good feedback. Unfortunately, I can't get it sold because I'm the wrong color. My skin is the wrong color. They'll tell you that straight out too nowadays. They're like, no, unless you're gay, forget it. So yeah, unfortunately, I just can't get it sold. But yeah, and the shell's passing was hit us all pretty hard. So, but her son took care of her up till the end. So, but it's funny because I didn't even know she had died because she had moved. They had moved her to Arizona, New Mexico. Sorry, New Mexico. And I hadn't even know she died. And the Hollywood Reporter was calling me, and the LA Times, and all these people were calling me, and I'm like, I got to find out from the Sun what happened because I don't live down the street from her anymore. Yeah, I was tragic. I didn't get my signed figure or my phaser rifle. You were a donor? Unfortunately, I wasn't dealing with the fulfillment on that stuff. So if you were a donor for Renegades back in the day, or the figure, I know that there's no figures. Oh yeah, and you never got your figure. You didn't tell anybody. Kind of could have helped you back in the day, back when I was back in LA. I know the figures are all gone now. That sucks. If I had any extra, I would give it to you, but I don't even have any extra. But if I do have a few of the Almanara DVDs, if you want any of those, I can get down to those for you. That's about all I have to give away, unfortunately. But yeah, so I'm sorry about that. I wish you had told somebody because I was trying to reply to everybody that was sending it in. But again, I had nothing to do with fulfillment, but at least I could go and complain for you to Sky. Sky was handling all that. And so a lot of people were hitting me up and saying they weren't getting their stuff. And at least then I could go and bitch at him. But he and I don't even talk anymore. So unfortunate. So I'm sorry about that. That kind of sucks. But again, if you want an Aminara DVD, I can do that for you. I guess it's the only thing I got sitting around. Okay. All right. And I'm also working on, as you know, I do board games as well. So I'm working on. If you didn't get it, then just DM me. I don't know if you are linked to any of my stuff, but I'll just put my email. If you don't have my email, this is it. So you can just email me if you want a copy of that. Just give me your address. I'll get one out to you. But yeah, because that sucks. Because if my own stuff, I fulfill everything I do. And if you're not let me see. And you're on my channel right now, so if you want to subscribe to my channel as well, I do reviews on everything. But I'm also a board game designer, and I just hooked up with Mark Spears. And Mark Spears and I, he's a comic book. He does a lot of cover art. He did like Spawn and stuff like that. But he and I are working on a game together right now. So we're doing a card game of classic monsters as well. So this is my prototype box. I'm play testing it right now. So doing writing is very similar to creating a game, where you have to get a bunch of people together and you have to play it over and over and over again. But it's called Riftstorm, and I have a Aurora version of this as well. And you'll be able to mix and match them, so you'll be able to have Frankenstein in a spaceship at a later date. And my graphic designer, who did a lot of the stuff for Axonar. I don't want to bring that up, but he did a lot of the stuff for Axonar, which I'm sure you're familiar with. So, so here's some of the cards. So it looks like the Wicked Witch and stuff like that. But if you notice, the border kind of looks more sci-fi-y. That's because I originally built it for Aurora, and he's redesigning some of the stuff for me. So like there's Dracula and stuff like that. So it's gonna be pretty cool. So you're the first one to actually see this because I've not shown this to anyone yet, and I've got to I got to play test. That's my next thing. And it's an area control, so you're going to be having standees of the characters that you have that you buy in like this river. So you have a deck of cards, and then you're laying out 6 cards, and then through the cards you have, they generate money for you or currency that then you can purchase other cards with. And so anyway, these are the locations. So we have the ghost ship, and you notice that these are kind of sci-fi kind of looking too. So I got to change the way this looks too. The vampire crypt and stuff to that effect. So yeah, and that's and then this is the main deck that you can increase your deck with. So there's a whole bunch of cards there. So, but it's all horror based. So, but he does some really good work. He's done some mainstream covers as well, and so I'm excited to work with him. Like here's his Wolfman and stuff like that. So I like this one a lot. So I just made up a thing behind you. So I basically took his artwork and I made cards around it, and so I'm excited to get this going too. Mummy. But yeah, so excited to get that out too. But I haven't shown that to anybody yet. Besides you're the only one left. All right, so I'm probably gonna close this up. But it was great chatting with you. Yeah, I just don't know when I get around to it. I'll be happy to read it and give you a couple of notes if you want. But it may take me, a little bit to read it. But just so you know, I'll be brutally honest. So if you don't want that, don't give it to me. But yeah, I sent you my email, so you can send me your address of the DVD if you want, and then if you want to send me the script, I'll be happy to take a look at it. All right. Well, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And if hopefully you're a donor, and if so, thank you very much for supporting Lords. All right. All right, Darth, I appreciate it. Have a good one. All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye.